you ever imagined it being this big?
No, no, not at all. Like the only thing that I was really shooting for when I wrote the first Walt book was just the opportunity to be able to sell enough books to where I could continue writing. Because to me, that's the most enjoyable part of the whole process is the writing process. And I can do that in my ranch in a little town of 25 in northern Wyoming, and I sit in a room and I type about my imaginary friends, and it's kind of funny because people will ask me, they'll say, well, what's it like to have a beer with Lou Diamond Phillips, or what's it like to go on tour in France, or all this kind of stuff. And I'm always looking at them and going, you do realize that's only 5% of what my life is like, right? The other 95% is sitting there typing about my imaginary friends, alone in a room. So, but I don't know. I guess I'm not quite sure. I guess in some ways I understand the resonance that the characters have had like that, and that the books and the television show have had, in a sense that there's a decency to the characters, I think, that people respond to. I mean, Walt's not perfect in any way. I mean, he's a damaged individual, no two ways about it. But he has a code that he lives by, and he tries to do the right thing. And the word that I always use about Walt is decent. He's decent. He cares about the people in his county. He cares about people in general. And there are an awful lot of people like that that are in the business of law enforcement simply because that's what they do. They care about people and they want to make sure that everybody's safe.
Are you and Walt a lot alike?
Oh, my wife has the best remark about that. She says that Walt is who Craig would like to be in 10 years. It's just he's off to an incredibly slow start. So I don't know. I mean, when you write a character in first person, well, especially when you write 14 novels, 2 novellas, and a collection of short stories, all from the perspective, of that character, you can't help but have that character be somewhat close, close to the vest. But I haven't had the tragedies, I think, that Walt has had in his life. I've led a really incredibly charmed life that's been pretty wonderful. And part of that's due to Walt.
Wow, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I think it takes a lot for somebody to write and be so descriptive. And with people nowadays, they don't really have the attention span to sit and read a book. And so you're doing a good job. Which book is closest to your heart?
Oh, that's always the one you're working on right now. It's always the one you're working on right now because you're submerged into that world. The one I'm working on for next year is called Land of Wolves, and it draws some analogous aspects to what's happening in Walt's life. There's a shepherd that's killed on the mountains like that, but they're not sure if it's a suicide or it's a murder. And to help complicate matters like that, there's a wolf sighting in the Bighorn Mountains like that, and it's an older wolf like that. And so Walt has this kind of empathetic kind of response to this wolf in a place where wolves are not supposed to be. That's a predator zone like that in the Bighorns, and wolves are shot on sight. And it's an analogous kind of telling like that of an old Basque proverb like that, which is that a land of strangers is a land of wolves.
That's very interesting and true. What would you like to see? I mean, how would you said you wanted to write a book a year. What does that look like in terms of being alone, sitting in a room and thinking about it?
When you first start out, look at, and it was Viking Penguin that sat me down, like after I wrote the first Walt Longmire book, The Cold Dish, and they said, we think you should consider doing this as a series. And it's a little daunting at first, because that does mean that they want a book a year. And, I don't know, it had taken me like 17 years to write the first book. And so all of a sudden, the second book you need to come out with in 6 months. It's a little intimidating. And so, it's a little frightening. But then I got to be honest, like that. I kind of tend to refer to my style of literature as like, the ditch digging school of literature, in the sense that I don't look out windows, and watch the clouds trying to get, an idea for, a book. Most generally like that. I tend to refer to it as, whenever people talk about writer's block, I'm like, I've never heard of ditch digger's block. You climb into the ditch with a shovel. Believe me, I've never heard a ditch digger go, I'm just not feeling the ditch today. I just don't want to, dig today. Get in the ditch with a shovel. Something will start happening like that. And I'm a big one for that too. Like that, I think that I don't know what I would do if I didn't have at least one book a year to write. I'm like one of those dynamo motors. I'd spiral out of control like that and burn out is what would happen like that. So I need that kind of a workload at least. A lot of times I'll write short stories like that, or also write novellas. I've had 2 different novellas published. One was actually the first state read for the state of Wyoming, and and they're not quite as long as the novels like that, but I think that it's important to have that kind of a workload. At least it is for me.
You said you've been traveling since September. What would you like to, how does a man like you stay so humble when you've had so much success?
Oh, I think my dad had the best response about that. He's like, we're a humble people, but we've got a lot to be humble about. And so, but I don't know, it's kind of hard to get carried away with yourself when you live in a town of 25, I mean, all my ranching buddies that live there, right around in the area, they don't really care that I'm on the New York Times bestsellers list or that there's a TV show on Netflix. It means nothing to them. They want to know, when are you going to fix that west side fence that goes up the ridge line? That's what they want to know. Where are you getting good hay this year anyway? That type of thing. And so I don't know. It's actually kind of a blessing, I think, in many ways. Because it's easy to stay grounded, in a rural area, in a very rural area, in a ranching community. But but then it also provides an incredible focus. It provides an incredible focus for the writing. I mean, I was looking at the newspaper this morning here in Spokane, and there's so much going on. I was looking at just the things that are going on at the Bing, at the little theater where we're going to be doing the event tonight. I was looking at all the musical acts, and I was like, crap, I wish I could stay here for about a month, for gosh sakes. And I think there would be too many distractions. I don't know if I could write, in a city like this, because there's just too much enticement to go out and be involved and see things. Yeah, oh yeah, that's true too.
You seem like a curious person.
I am, maybe overly.
What do you and your wife enjoy doing?
Oh, we're awfully boring. We're an awfully boring couple that. We like sitting by the fire and reading. I come from a big family of readers. I mean, people always ask that question, how did you get to be a writer? And I think, well, the first thing that has to happen is you have to be a reader. And, I'm a ferocious reader, and I read across genres. I read everything. But for me, that's a lot of it right there. I mean, I just my pastimes are, well, I mean, we've got stock, there are horses, on the ranch, and so obviously there's a certain amount of ranch work that goes along with whatever else I'm doing. But that's kind of nice too, because it kind of provides a kind of a balance, between the cerebral life of being a writer I've also got to go out there and fight the irrigation ditches. I've got to go out there, and mend fence. I've got to go out and, feed the horses and shovel out the barn and do all the things that are more outside work which I think is good. I mean, if I had to just sit in front of a computer, 14 hours a day, every day, then I don't know, that might get a little bit tiresome that. So it's a nice balance.
So you're living the dream?
I think so, yeah, I think so. I can't see how I would want my life to change in any way. It's pretty great.